Yeah, so I'm handling Barracuda as a pre-sales consultant. So if you guys have any query regarding Barracuda products, anything related to demo or designing related to or a solution designing or presentation, you can reach out to me directly. I'll share my email address once the presentation is over in the chat window. So if you guys have any query, you can you can put down your question and answer window chat. Once the presentation is over, we'll answer all of your query. So let's begin. So as we went into the new normal of work from home, and uh, that also some work has been resumed, but there are a lot of things that has changed ever since we went into this pandemic. So there is fear among many of them that there will be a second wave of the same thing, and according to Morgan Stanley report, they have published that what the all the government is going to do to tackle this situation. And many organization has already published their application online so that their employee can access it without VPN. And also more and more e-commerce business is growing in different field. You might have seen that those who were selling the products in department now have started service to sell it online, be it a grocery or anything that you can buy by going into the mall or the market. So the thing is, how do you protect it? They went online, but they have very little knowledge about this web application security. And most importantly, for small and medium-sized organization, it's really important to protect their web application, as they are very easy target for the hacker. And then they hack them, they take access of their servers, involve them into the command and control, and launch an DDoS attack, which is again a larger attack. So if you are on a cloud, uh, then you can scale it very easily. You don't need to buy anything, because everyone is start to accessing all your application from internet, and that will put a load on your servers, right? So for those who have already been onto the cloud, it will be very easy to scale, and they can opt for pay-as-you-go model on various cloud service provider. And more importantly, to protect is also when they scale it. So there are different ways and best practice by which one can protect the web application. You can host the application on cloud and use the CDN technology. Barracuda supports both AWS and Azure CDN, so you can use it with that for protection without slowing your web application access. Also, DDoS protection is available at layer 7, application DDoS protection. So is advanced bot. So the thing is, let's start from the scratch. Why do we need a web application firewall? So as you can see in the table, this is the reason. So many leading Fortune 500 companies and industry experts have concluded that application firewall are now mandatory. When you step back and consider the fact, the conclusion is pretty straightforward. They know that uh, application provider provides access to sensitive data. Firewall don't protect it. IPS and patching is not enough to protect this layer 7 attack, because IPS works again on layer 4. And if it just going to fix the code, it will be very difficult, expensive, and slow. So when I talk about fixing a code, it's related to vulnerability. So the conclusion is, you need to have a solution which identify the layer 7 attacks and protect against all the vulnerability and different attacks that occurs on web applications. So firewall, it needs to be something at the parameter that block attacks before they get to the app. So that's the extension of defense in depth. And you need to have the proactive approach as well, proactive device or solution that must block the attack before they are known, and not reactively chase hacker by waiting for signature and etc. Because signature based product will never be able to solve this problem. So what's needed is application layer firewall or a WAF. So the Open Web Application Security Project, it's a non-profitable foundation that works to improve the security of a software or a web applications. So once attacker can make command, they can control your web application and data. So the fun fact here I would like to give you, the SQL injection was leveraged in infamous Sony picture hack of 2014 when suspected North Korean operative gained access to confidential data. And according to US CERT, the attacker used a server message block tool to install several malicious components, including a backdoor and other destructive tool. So every few years, this OFS organization publish the top 10 attacks or that can occur on the web application. And whenever you're designing a solution, you might have seen that whether it's RFP or the requirement from the customer, that a solution must protect against the OFS top 10 vulnerability. So how does Barracuda is going to provide you protection against the layer 7 attack or against the OFS top 10 vulnerability? So it does that by intercepting all traffic and inspecting it for attacks and blocking the attacks before they reach your web servers. It recognizes all kind of obfuscation and restricts the allow set of input to only those that the web server is inspecting using a positive security model. So when you configure the positive security model in Barracuda, this protect your site from uh, everything that is not allowed in the web. And when you configure it that whatever is allowed, that will be only allowed, and all the other traffic, it will be blocked. And this protects your site from again a zero-day attack. Barracuda WAF will protect against zero-day attack as well. It protects all your custom code as well as third-party code, and relieving you end customer to focus on their actual business rather than the security. So when we talk about inbound protection, it's a comprehensive application security, and as I mentioned, it's the OS top 10 attack. You can go on the any search engine and search for the OS top 10 attack, and one of the top attack is the SQL injection, which remains the top attack for a very long time now. And other attacks, the number changes, but still they remain in the top 10, like a broken authentication or a cross-site scripting and so on. And on top of that, you might have heard a story about the DDoS attack that occur on the AWS itself, on Microsoft Azure, GitHub. This attacks is now growing, and it is in TBPS, not even in GBPS. So it's a huge amount of data that been thrown to the server to make it unavailable. And Barracuda Active DDoS Prevention, it's a service that protects you against this volumetric DDoS attack, combining with a application DDoS protection feature of a Barracuda web application firewall. It gives you comprehensive protection from all types of DDoS attack. Then we have the GUIP control and application clocking as well. I will discuss that. What is application clocking? GUIP is straightforward. Based on the IP address, you can block the specific traffic coming to your web server based on the geography of that IP address. It also inspecting outbound traffic. So Barracuda web application firewall also prevent leakage and theft of sensitive data, including server software information, credit card, social security number, and so on. And with Barracuda web application firewall, you get security and protection without having to make any lengthy and expensive change to your application code or the backend server. Barracuda web application firewall not only provide superior protection against data loss, DDoS, and all known application layer attack, but also provide protection with automatic updates as new threat appear. And as new type of threat emerge, it will acquire new capability to block them. So we'll go deep into the architecture of the Barracuda application firewall. So it's Barracuda WAF block an ever expanding list of sophisticated web-based intrusion and attacks that target applications that hosted on a web server and in the cloud. Barracuda WAF scan all inbound web traffic to block attack and inspect HTTP response from the backend server for DLP, data loss prevention. On top of that, the integrated access control engine enables administrator to create granular access control policy for AAA authentication, authorization, and accounting without requiring application change. And the onboard L4 and L7 load balancing capability enables organization to add backend server quickly to scale deployment as they grow. Its application acceleration capability like SSL offloading, caching, compression, and connection pooling ensures the faster application delivery of web application content. Whenever user try to access web page, this is the path for traffic and it one by one goes into the different module of the web and inspect it for the validity. And on top of it, WAF gets an update that is from Barracuda Energize Update Server for policies, attack definition, and the security. It's automatic update appliance and fetch all the new signature as soon as it's available. So when we configure WAF to protect your web application, depending on a web application protocol, Barracuda will apply security for validation of it whenever traffic hit Barracuda. And default policy is created for each protocol like HTTP, HTTPS, FTP, and FTPS. And after that, we can do SSL offloading. That means if your web server is on HTTP and you want to publish it on HTTPS and want Barracuda to handle it, then it will do encryption and decryption. After that, it normalizes all traffic before applying any security policy that matches the traffic. For HTTP data, this requires decoding Unicode, hex to base text and to prevent a disguised attack using encoding format for which the string match are not effective. So normalization is always enabled if Barracuda web application firewall is in active mode. And there are different characters that you can specify in the parameter to protect against the incoming attacks. Barracuda web application firewall provides feature to implement user authentication and access. The login form must be accessible to all users, but need not to reside on the backend server, right? So in that scenario, Barracuda web application firewall includes the default login form that can be used instead of creating a login page onto the web server. The user submits a form request and Barracuda web application firewall, it will compare the information against internal or externally located authentication server like AD, LDAP, and Radius. If successfully authenticated, the user receives a cookie and it redirects to a success page. And all the subsequent requests after verifying proper authorization, the Barracuda web application firewall forwards the request to the desired location onto the web server or the backend server. So this was, I was talking about the mostly inbound traffic. Now let's talk about the outbound protection. So data theft protection prevents unauthorized disclosure of confidential information, and confidential data theft protection you will require a two-step. You can specify any at-risk data element handled by web applications using security policy and enable protection for this element where needed using a URL policy. So sensitive data element requiring a masking to prevent an unauthorized disclosure, or request consisting of a sensitive data may be blocked altogether. So we can configure any sensitive data element which may need protection along with the desired way to handle them. So credit card and the social security number or the custom pattern you can create to prevent exposure of personal data such as these numbers. We can block the response from a server, and we can clock it to override the character based on the value that we can define. So all this information, it will be rewrite with a random number that we define in the policy. And then website clocking. So attacker, what they do, first task of the hacker, this is the recognitions of a network for the weaknesses. For example, they will just do this recognition scan to know what is the web server, what is the database that they are using, what is the application server's version number, what is the patch is there any known vulnerability, so on. So they prop your web server by sending a multiple request to the web server. And clocking makes enterprise web resources invisible to hacker and the bots and worm. It will hide all the errors, HTTP headers and IP address and other information to revealing to the hacker. So that's what clocking will do. So just for example, here you can see the attackers is trying to access a page 4.html which goes to the application server, and application server send that this page is not available. So that's why they send the random information so that application server reveals some information. And by doing the clocking, this page error code, it will be replaced by a default page. So that will be automatically the redirect to the default page. So this one, hacker won't be able to get the information about the actual server version number, vulnerability, and other information. Moving on to the application DDoS attack layer 7. So administrator can create rules and block traffic from specific geographical region, such as set of countries that they don't do business with. In many cases, attacker will try to hide behind an anonymous proxy. A WAF has the list of anonymous proxy, and if you don't want to allow this anonymous access, you can block the proxy. WAF also bundled in the Barracuda blacklisted. So this is a list of bad IP address that are maintained by Barracuda Networks team, and administrator can look to block client based on this blacklisted IP address. On top of that, we also do the client fingerprinting. So WAF has rolled out a new mechanism to check whether the client that is trying to connect to a web applications is a real person accessing the web application from a browser, or whether it's an automated bot trying to attack the website. So suspicious client, it can be challenged with the CAPTCHA, and if the client respond with the correct CAPTCHA, he will get the information that he or she tried to look. And if it's a bot, of course, it can't provide the proper CAPTCHA response. Then we have the slow client attack protection. So there are some tools used by hacker to slow down the communication between client and server. The aim to drain out all the resources from the server. So WAF monitor the traffic and apply specific heuristic to detect such attack and block out bad client, so that the connection between this slow client and web server doesn't remain open. It will eliminate or terminate this kind of connection. So there are some, as I mentioned, this is the reCAPTCHA that we'll mention. So there are some other advanced services there, advanced threat protection to if you have any web application which allows the user to upload the data or upload the file. You can use advanced threat protection that's on the cloud. We'll do the sandboxing, so basically we'll detect a 0-day file if there is any. Then Barracuda WAF Control Center, which gives you the one central view to manage the multiple Barracuda appliances which is spread across geographic region or within the country. Active DDoS prevention is again a service that we discuss. Then Barracuda Vulnerability Manager and Vulnerability Remediation Service. So I'm going to talk about this in detail. What is Vulnerability Manager and what is Remediation Service? So just for the information, this Vulnerability Manager is free for all your customers, whether they are having a Barracuda product or not. They can use the Vulnerability Manager to see what vulnerability is there inside their web applications. So what we'll do, so this is the URL bvm.barracudanetworks.com. We will scan the application for the vulnerability and provide a detailed report. It's again free of cost. You can integrate with the Barracuda WAF as well. So this will help you to detect the vulnerability, and a lot of time you require to follow the compliance. You have to scan the web application against the vulnerability continuously, just to comply with some of the standard which is there, like PCI DSS and so HIPAA and so on. So I'll go to the bvm.barracuda networks and show you how this actually looks like. Then we'll continue with the presentation. So this is the Barracuda vulnerability demo is there. So I will log in into the demo account just to show you how it looks like. So you can create an account as well. It's free of cost, and you can see the demo as well. So I'll go into the demo. Yeah. So you can see there is a dashboard how many scan has been done. So these are the different websites. So you can add this website into this active scan. You can just add the URL, okay, and you can see the waiting for verification. So what it is telling you to verify that, you have to either email to the main administrator, you can add this file into txt file into the web server, you can add this tag into the web application header file, or you can add the txt record into the DNS provider, and then you can validate it, else you won't be able to scan it. It is just to make sure that you own the website, and you can add the website and verify it. Once you've done that, it will scan for all the vulnerabilities. So let's see what kind of vulnerability it can scan. So you can schedule it or you can start immediately. What is the maximum length you want to email the report? Yes, you can do that. Then the crawling, which is most important. So you can choose this website to scan against from which kind of web server. Desktop is a mobile website, or you can scan using a custom browser. Then you need to provide that information. 15 requests per second. Then the crawler depth into the specific link. That's what you can send. Authentication, if there is any authentication, if login is required, you can provide that information as well. And if you don't want to scan something, you can exclude that IP addresses or exclude the URL pattern as well, so that we don't scan that thing. And then you can start the scan, and once it is done, you will get the result into finished scan. So you can see that we have found this. In this vulnerability, there is one web page where we have found 58 vulnerabilities, then 10 vulnerabilities, 14 vulnerabilities. So this is just to see how vulnerable is your web server. It will not do anything, it will just give you the report. Okay. So this is what Barracuda Vulnerability Manager, and you can integrate this with the Barracuda WAF as well for the automatic remediation. And this is the report that looks like how many critical vulnerabilities there, high, medium, and low. Then we have the remediation service. So this offers everything that Barracuda Vulnerability Manager offers, plus it will remediate the vulnerability automatically on Barracuda WAF. So that means there will be an option to fix the vulnerability. So if you click on the fix button, it will create a rule on Barracuda WAF. to prevent the attacker to actually leverage that vulnerability, so that they won't be able, they will not be able to exploit that vulnerability. So we'll create a rule automatically, and this is on demand, and you can manage the vulnerability workflow, and this is free for the Barracuda web application firewall customer, whoever is using the Barracuda web. So that's the only difference. So the process is to scan the vulnerability, find the vulnerability. You can need to connect the Barracuda web application firewall with this vulnerability manager and remediation service, and finally you can remediate your vulnerability. So it's really straightforward. You can do it right now whenever you want to fix the Barracuda WAF. You can start with the vulnerability manager just to make sure that at least customer is aware about the vulnerability that is present in the current web applications. Then moving on, identity and access management. So Barracuda web application firewall provides feature to implement user authentication and access control. The login form must be accessible to all the user wherever there is requirement, but need not to be reside on the backend server. That's what we discussed in the architecture as well. So you can offload authentication to the Barracuda. And single sign-on is a mechanism where a single set of user credential is used for authentication and authorization to access multiple applications across different web server and platform without having to re-authenticate. And most importantly, we have the two-factor authentication as well for advanced security or to achieve a zero trust. So you can enable the two-factor authentication on top of a normal authentication service. Acceleration and load balancing for the static pages. So yes, cache is also available in Barracuda. So we can accelerate the response to the user who are trying to access static page, so that the bandwidth can be saved and used for the other resources. And so is a load balancing is also available. Limited load balancing feature is there, but you can load balance the traffic between the different web server using the WAF itself. So if there is very limited functionality requirement is there for the load balancing, you can use the WAF itself for the load balancing feature. No need to buy a dedicated load balancer device. Most importantly, Barracuda has presence in more than 80 countries, and we have more than 150K customers that gets update, and they also, some of the customers shares the intelligence with Barracuda real-time system. So all the customer also benefited from these updates, and all the customer gets update hourly updates for the different definitions. And in WAF, you will get a granular reporting as well, and detailed logs will be there for the attacks. Most importantly, for the advanced analytics and automation, you can integrate with the same solution as well, like ArcSight, Splunk, and RSA. So as I mentioned, these are the all the features that you get in one platform. Security that we discuss in detail. DDoS is there. Authentication and access control is also available on Barracuda WAF. Session persistence for the load balancing as well, so to monitor the server health. SSL and performance acceleration is also available, so to enable the HTTP website to publish on HTTPS, you can do the SSL offloading. And lastly, logging and reporting. So let's look at the third-party findings. So this is the Barracuda web application firewall 960 record by the NSS lab. So we have achieved the highest block ratio in terms of security effectiveness for 99.97. So that's a huge recommendation coming from the NSS lab for the WAF. And these are the WAF models starting from 360 to 1060. Supports 25 Mbps of throughput to 10 Gbps of throughput. So these are the hardware model, but it's not only about the hardware. It is available on the VM platform and cloud platform as well. You can deploy as a pay-as-you-go model on the cloud like Amazon, Microsoft, Google, and or you can use the bring your own license as well. And finally, we have published our own WAF as a service. So that is directly coming from the Barracuda itself. It's not on any of the other cloud providers. They can directly use the Barracuda WAF as a service from Barracuda and protect their web applications. So this is from my side. Thank you guys for attending the today's session. If you have any query, feel free to ask in the question and answer window. I'll answer all of your questions.